So setting up this camera and all this lighting in my bedroom where the book reading magic happens, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So while we're here, I wanted to play a quick little game. I really enjoy collecting books. Some of the books I've collected that are rare, I did on accident. Other ones I happened to find now that I'm really into collecting books. I really, really love reading, but I think I love hunting for rare and collectible books just as much as I love reading. That searching and that looking and digging through stuff and educating yourself on books, that stuff is so fun. So what I want to do today is I'm going to grab somewhere between 5 and 10 first edition, first printings, and I'll show them off and I'll talk about them and tell you what I think of the book. So let's get into it. Let's start with something happy. No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy. First printing, first edition. I picked it up not too long ago. I don't know why it was sitting in the cheap stuff at Half Price Books, but whatever. I love this book. I think No Country for Old Men is like the best rendition of Texas as it was in like the early 80s. It just feels like home. I've spent my whole life in Texas. No other book has been able to sum up the Texas I remember from my childhood better than No Country for Old Men. I'm not talking about the people getting killed and the drug dealers and stuff. I'm just talking about how good Cormac McCarthy is at turning Texas into such an evocative setting for a novel. It's just beautiful. Highly recommend it. I haven't talked about Brandon Sanderson and the Cosmere a lot on my channel, and it's not because I don't like him. I absolutely love him. It's just that I just haven't made the time to do it. Maybe I will as it gets closer to the 5th Stormlight Archive book coming out. But while we're in here, let me show you something. This is my first edition, first printing of Mistborn, and this is special. I got it for my birthday from my best friend, and he got it signed for me and personalized. How freaking cool is this? He did this back in like 2010, I think, when you could still buy them direct from Brandon, before even Dragonsteel was like a company. Yeah, he just got on Brandon's website and picked me up a signed first edition, first printing. I've looked up how much these cost now on eBay, and it is terrifying, and I think I need insurance for this book. Yeah, I introduced him to Brandon Sanderson and just the Cosmere as a whole, and he became a really big fan with me, and it's been really great to just share my love of reading with my best friend. So, the fact that he buys me stuff like that for my birthday shows that he listens and he cares and he's awesome. He keeps trying to get me to read some stupid book about Charles Manson though, so I'm not going to read it, dude. Like, I know you're watching this. I ain't going to read it. Sorry. Here's something fun that I don't think a lot of people have read, and it was published posthumously, and I don't think I've ever seen a review for it on YouTube. I should probably look, but Pirate Latitudes by Michael Crichton. I picked this up for like dirt cheap. I think most of my books I picked up for dirt cheap. I'm kind of cheap. You know how it is. I read it a long time ago, so I don't remember much about it. I just remember how much fun I had with it and how much I enjoyed the characters. I think there's like a betrayal in it and someone trying to get revenge, and there's sneaky pirate stuff, climbing up on boats, cutting people's throats. So yeah, this is a good one too. All right, since we're talking about first editions and books I love, y'all got to see this. Gardens of the Moon, first edition, first printing hardcover. It's the US version. And man, look at that art. That art is nothing like the book. It has nothing to do with the book. Also, you see that? I paid $7 for this bad boy. This ain't $7 anymore. I was kind of shocked when I saw how much they were. Half Price Books had a worse copy than this for like a few $100. And I was like, holy crap. Nope. I'm pretty sure collecting all of Ericsson's stuff has just passed me by, and it really bums me out. I'm going to have to pay a fortune to get the rest of the Malazan series. It's Gardens of the Moon. It's Malazan. You all know it's great, or you hate it, but you should definitely read it. While we're on the topic of Steven Erikson, I just got to show off that I completed the trifecta. Look at these. It's all 3 Willful Child books, first edition, first printing. Super happy. Can't wait to get to number 2 and number 3. Like you saw in my review video, I love Willful Child so much. I'm just super, super excited. I'm not going to count these toward the 5 to 10 or whatever I'm going to cover in here. I just thought I'd show them off while I'm here. So I don't know if anyone even has this on their shelf that's watching this video, but they should. The Death and Life of Superman, written by Roger Stern. This is the novelization of the Death and Life of Superman comic book run. A run that I absolutely love, even though I know that it's just despised by a lot of people, and it pretty much did ruin comic books. Superheroes straight up can't die, like put out the death of a superhero to sell comics, and then they're like, oh look, he's back, it's all okay now. I will say that like his being brought back isn't too ridiculous or stupid. It's not like magic or anything. Kryptonians are just built different, so it kind of makes sense they could be brought back. But I really, really enjoy reading superhero novelizations, and this is just one of the better ones. I think one of the coolest things about that book is all the side characters. You get Supergirl, you get Superboy, the Man of Steel, and then like the weird, like the cyborg Superman, and the weird one that has like the amber visors, and he's like grimdark Superman. Like at one point in that, he catches like a thief picking a lock, and instead of taking him to jail, he just grabs his hands and just crushes his bones and is like, well, you won't be stealing anymore. You're free to go now. And like ruins this guy's life. It's just insane. Just all that. It's super cool. And then, you know, at the end, Superman, he comes back. He's got like this badass mullet. I'll post a picture right here. And just stuff like that. It's really cool. I really enjoy that story. Superman uses guns toward the end because he doesn't have superpowers for a while because he's trying to revivify his body. It's just so cool. Let's move on. So I think these next few are going to be stuff I haven't read yet, but I'm really interested in. And I just picked up really cool copies and I just want to show them off and talk about it. And maybe I'll leave some comments telling me, hurry up and read these, or don't read them, they suck. So we'll see. And these next two are interesting and kind of share themes. So let's get into them. My first edition, first printing of Lonesome Dove. I picked this up for $1. When I got it, the spine was like crooked. It's not really crooked anymore, but it's so cool that I found this for a freaking $1. It's in great shape too.
I'd buy that for $1.
I can't wait to finally read it. Everyone I know that has read it has loved it, and it's definitely on the list for this year. I just need to figure out when I'm going to find the time to read this tome. And the other book, literally a book away from that, is Texas by James Michener. I've been interested in this book because I've seen it on the bookshelf of every old man and old woman in the state of Texas. I don't know if they've read it. Maybe they just picked it up because it has this name. Maybe that was Michener's whole goal, was like, if I make a book about a state, a lot of people in that state will buy it. Who knows if it's good? I don't, but this is my first edition, first printing, and I really want to read it just to say I've read it. I think what it does is it covers like the history of Texas from the early Spanish settling days all the way up to wherever Learjets came from, because that's what's it toward the back of the book when I glanced inside to see what was happening. This seems pretty cool. I can't wait to get to it. It is also a giant tome, so I don't know when I'm going to read it, but I want to. Let's do one more I haven't read, but I'm interested in. The Tommyknockers by Stephen King. Pretty cool copy. I've heard this book is bad. It has a really cool premise, and I've heard that like the first third of it is pretty good and that the rest is terrible. And so I don't know when I will get to it, but I really, really like this copy, and look at how white and clean these pages are. I don't think this copy has ever been read. So when I get to it, I'll probably be the first person to ever crack this bad boy open. So that's pretty exciting. Let me know in the comments if the Tommyknockers is good or not. There's an interesting story in On Writing, Stephen King's kind of autobiography and talking about the craft of writing. He talks about how he was coked out of his mind as he was writing the Tommyknockers and literally had like tissues jammed up his nose to keep the blood from dripping onto the manuscript as he was like frantically writing it. So that's a fun, heartwarming story. Speaking of fun, heartwarming stories, and this one is actually a fun, heartwarming story, I want to show you a couple of books I picked up and this experience I had talking to Brandon Sanderson a couple times when I met him. I picked up The Gathering Storm, like on release week or whatever when the book tour was happening. It was super cool. I got to meet Brandon, and I got to meet Harriet McDougal, Robert Jordan's wife, and his editor, and the editor for some Black Company novels, which I didn't know until recently, and that's just amazing. I got the bad boy signed, of course, because why would you meet someone in a book signing and not get it signed? Brandon was just so awesome. It was so cool. And, you know, this was super early in his career. Yeah, back in 2009. And it was just really cool to be able to meet him and talk to him about books. I told him I listened to his podcast, Writing Excuses, and he was like, whoa, I don't know if anyone had ever brought that up because, you know, this was 2009. It's not like everyone and their mother had a podcast at the time. So I think podcasts were listened to by almost no one. My cat is about to destroy my lighting setup. I'm a little worried. And the second one, Towers of Midnight, I also have signed by him and Harriet. Got to meet him again. It was just great. One of the other cool things is he wrote a personalized note in the top that said, thanks for sharing my books, because I had brought 5 new Sanderson readers to that signing. Like I was the last in line. It was like my brother, my best friend, our friend from work, his friend, and my wife. And they were just kind of talking to Brandon and stuff. And they were like, oh yeah, that guy's the reason why we're here. Like all 5 of us. And so when I got to it, he like thanked me and wrote that little personalized note. It was super cool. So yeah, if you're out there reading the Cosmere, maybe I'm responsible for it before there was even BookTube. Like who knows? Maybe you know the person that knows the person that I recommended the book to. I'm just going to stick with that story. Look at this little baby. Isn't he cute? That's the Gray Man, Court Gentry Pickles. Speaking of Gray Man, let's grab another first edition first printing. This is book 8 in Mark Greeny's Gray Man series. I got to meet him. I'll post a picture. And funny thing, when I met him, we stood up to take a photo together, and he's like, "You are the first person on this entire book tour that was taller than me." I thought that was funny. Yeah, I got it signed. It was really cool. He's an awesome dude. He did like a whole thing talking about how the Russo brothers had originally owned the rights to make a movie, and then they lost the rights, and the other people were going to make it, and he really didn't know how he felt about it. And then it was interesting to see that eventually the Russo brothers got it back and ended up making something for Netflix, which I thought that was pretty cool. I've only watched like a third of it though. It just doesn't feel the same. I'm one of those book snobs that's like, it's not like the book. I don't want to watch it. I understand that it's a different medium. When they change certain things for like the stupidest reason, like look at the first episode of the Wheel of Time show, it's just dumb. It just ruins it for me. I'm just like, I'm over this. I'm out. Mark Greeny's a really cool dude. He's actually going to be back here in like a month. So I'm going to go to that signing. Super excited. Probably going to take some of the other hardcovers, see if I can get those signed too. Yeah, if any of you have not read The Gray Man, you definitely need to check it out. Especially the audiobooks. They're so good. I mean, to the point that Mark Greeny said that the narrator for the series is the Gray Man. Like, he hears that guy in his head when he writes the Gray Man. And I mean, that's really saying something. While we're talking about thrillers, let's talk about this random thriller I read when I was in junior high, Vertical Run. I happened to pick this up not too long ago. It's like stuck in my head. It is a core memory at this point. It's just like a popcorn thriller that's like a Great Value, Die Hard or something. You have like a dude who's high up in like the corporate chain of this company who's like a Vietnam vet, and these like terrorists or something that are working for someone in the book, I think I remember, are trying to take him out because he like accidentally got infected with a virus or something. Like I said, I read this in junior high, so the fact that I can still remember this much of the plot is pretty cool. But yeah, it's him basically evading them in this building and like taking them out and stuff and eventually escaping. And it's just cool. And the fact that I managed to find a copy this nice, I'm super hyped. I plan on reading it again. I think I listened to the audiobook with my mom while we were driving somewhere. And I was like, wow, this is good. Let me have that cassette tape so I can finish it. Yes, a cassette tape. That's how long ago it was. It's just super cool. I want to dig into it. That's why I picked up a copy. All right, so this is the last one. Kind of running out of steam. My throat hurts. This Zero Sugar Baja Blast just ain't cutting it anymore. Talking's getting real hard. So this last book is I Am Not a Serial Killer by Dan Wells. Now, I don't know if a lot of you know who Dan Wells is, but he is like the keeper of the lore now for the Cosmere for Brandon Sanderson. He is the guy that will make sure that all the loose ends get tied if something happens to Brandon before he can finish the books. So they've been friends forever. They've been on Brandon's podcast forever. He's one of the co-hosts. I just really, really like this series. But I am going to warn you, book 5 is almost impossible to find in physical copies. It really sucks because the series is awesome. But the best way to read these books is on Audible. Just get the audiobooks. They're so good. Herbie Hayborn is the narrator, and he is the perfect person for this series. So the premise of this, the John Cleaver series, is you have basically like a teenage psychopath. He has like a lot of serial killer tendencies, but he hasn't killed anyone or anything. He works at a mortuary with his mom, and that, you know, they live above it. And he's obsessed with serial killers, and he ends up finding what he thinks is a serial killer in town, and he starts hunting them. And there is a twist halfway through the book that is insane, and it sets up the rest of the series, and it is so good. Dan Wells does such a good job of writing not only John Cleaver, the main character, but like the villains or the bad guys, to the point that in the second book, the antagonist in that is one of the best antagonists I have ever read in a book. He is truly terrifying. The level of intensity in these novels is just incredible for something that is basically written for young adults. I highly recommend them. I'm happy I found this to go out on. You know, you got to end with a banger. I hope you like this. This is a really experimental video. I just kind of wanted to talk about some random things on my shelf. I hope you enjoyed it. And with that, I'll see you next time.